Hello and welcome back. Over Christmas I ordered a Behringer Wave synth. I'm looking for a synth that will do lots of sort of paddy type evolving sounds, sort of mixture of real music, effects, strange noises, that sort of thing. The sounds that you play a chord and then it evolves. You can do all that sort of stuff in VSTIs, and I've got loads that do that, but I wanted a proper hardware synth. So I ordered this Wave. It's the first synth that I've ever bought where it lasted 20 minutes and then sadly put it back in the box and sent it back to Thomann in Germany. It just didn't do what I wanted. Very nice, and I'm sure people really, really love them, but it was just not for me. So I was thinking, back in my other studio, I've got quite an old Korg Triton LE, nice sort of synth, and being honest, my grandson likes pressing buttons on it randomly, and it plays sort of drum patterns and sort of makes up little arrangey type bits. It's an arrangement type keyboard synth thing. And the drums always were a bit unimpressive, I thought. Some of the sounds were quite nice, but I used to use them without all the effects and stuff like that. The way that Korg synths always worked was that you had sort of huge numbers of sounds in a program, and then those programs could be combined together in what they called combis. And there's loads of videos on those, the old Triton range has still got some decent sound. It just didn't really work for me. This one stuck out on YouTube, Korg Kross 2. I didn't know much about it. It came in 61 and 88 note versions, but the sounds on YouTube on this one, unlike the Wave, were actually quite impressive, and lots of sort of sounds that looked like they might do the trick. So I ordered one basically, and it's arrived, and it's the first synth that I've actually got quite excited about. Sure, it's got all these drums and stuff on it, but they're actually really good. Lots of the sort of patterns that the old Korg had just sort of didn't really inspire me in any way, but this one did. So because lots of the videos on YouTube about the Kross 2 just sort of go through the sounds one by one, and there's hundreds of them, I thought what I'd do is just pick some things at random, grab a sound, and then see what came of it. See if it actually led me to produce some tracks. Only little snippets of things, but some of them are actually quite impressive. I picked the sounds, pressed the button, and then basically decided to wait and see what my head would produce. Some of them are just noodles that sort of evolved from nothing. Others are sort of fairly well-known songs that sort of popped into my head when I heard the sound. Two things. I had to redo this video because I've been using a little red Scarlett preamp, and it didn't record this at all well. Plenty of level, not distorting. The little lights on the front that sort of flicker when the sound's low, go solid when the sound's sort of a decent level, and go red if you've gone over the top. The red lights never came on once, but the sound didn't sound like what I was hearing through the monitors in the studio here. So I had to go back and sort of revisit it, and what I actually did was I went back to using the old PreSonus interface that I've got, which works on a different Mac here, the Mac that I actually use for video on here. It's an old iMac, but it does have Cubase on it. So that plugged into the PreSonus Firewire is what I use to record it, because this keyboard has got most amazing bass. Best thing to do is I'll let you have some little sort of snippets of what I've been doing. See for yourself. I do suggest you listen to it reasonably loud, and I do suggest you probably listen very carefully and perhaps even use headphones. Anything that you know that you've got has got decent bass response, because some of the sonics down the bottom end are pretty stunning. Let's start with this one. Bettin's YouTube don't like this video very much, but there we go. Yeah, one of the presets. I mean, all I did, played the bass notes, and it started the sort of rhythm section up, you know, and that's quite good, isn't it? That it's well thought through, and the tone of that percussion section is really good. The old Korg that I had, it was much more electronic. This is actually sort of cuts through quite well. I won't bore you with too much of that one, but it just, as soon as I heard that bass note, it just sort of came into my head. Let's carry on. That one just again popped into my head, but I think it sounds really good. I was getting a bit carried away with this. I mean, the actual recording of this went on for so long because I was just finding tunes, either old tunes or completely brand new ones in my head for every single sound that's on there. It's amazing, really. There's loads and loads of videos on YouTube of other people going through the sounds one by one, so I'm not going to bore you with that. I've just picked a few out that just sort of inspired me to play something. That one, the bass part stuck in my head, so I sort of vaguely sort of thought, I know what that is. And, you know, it's that old sort of Doors thing, isn't it? But for the life of me, I couldn't remember how the rest of it went, so I made something up. Good though. So that one sort of somehow in my head, the Beatles' Let It Be sort of popped in, which is a bit odd because it's much, much slower. But it sort of worked in my head. So the sounds in this thing are really good to actually sort of make you think and just let you play and noodle. Even, I guess, if you then take the stuff that you've actually got from this keyboard and then stick it into your DAW and actually put new tracks and add things. The drums, the bass and the chords are a good sort of building block for doing other things with the song. It's a great thing for just making your mind go click. And that's that bass sound that the other interface just couldn't cope with, despite the fact that the indicator said it wasn't distorting. It did, quite badly, even though the levels, according to the screen, looked pretty good. But that at the bottom is pretty powerful. And if you haven't worked out what gave me the clue for that particular one, it was a Lionel Richie song that was originally in 3/4. That one's not. And it's much slower. So it's good inspiration, I reckon. This one is a sort of mixture of sort of slow and solid bottom and a sort of fairly high sort of little melody on the top. See what you think of this one. Why Axel F came into my head, I have no idea. But I think my young grandson has probably got something to do with that. He keeps playing it. Although why someone remembers that, I don't know. I hope it's not that crazy frog thing. That one was just some nice sounds, and then no drums this time, and just experimenting a bit with the Arpeggiator. It sort of works, doesn't it? And I'm still really impressed with that bottom end. It sounds great here. I think maybe the top melody part was perhaps a bit over the top on that one, but I'm guessing somewhere if I fiddle about with it I could find a way just to bring that down a bit because it was a bit potent. Let's carry on. Another example of that sort of very sort of tight bottom end, you know, that it really sort of cuts through, and I don't think I've heard that sound on any of the drum kits that I've got here. To be honest, it probably is in there somewhere, but they all sound, the ones that I'm using from VSTs, a little bit sort of softer. This thing coming out of the Korg, that's a pretty potent thing. I guess you could even record it and then stick it in as a loop in the DAW. Maybe I can try that sometime. It's not the sort of music I would normally even sort of consider, but it's pretty potent. I quite like it. Quite a nice sort of saw synth sound on that one. I quite like that one. It sort of fits in quite nicely. And that one started off with a sort of, not an arpeggiated bass sound, but a sort of rhythmic bass sound. So some of the ones that are actually engaged with the button that's marked up, in actual fact, don't go da-da-da-da-da. They actually just play a sort of rhythmic pattern, which is quite neat. I've not yet discovered if that can be changed. I don't think it can, but the one that is in there, I didn't expect it to do, so that's okay. That bass pattern definitely rings a bell, but I can't for the life of me remember what it sounds like. That one's got that sort of rhythmic cabassery type sound in the background rather than sort of drums. It's really good, and it's really nice when you put it with a sort of pad type sound. sure about this one. I quite like the bottom end, and that rhythmic top sort of seems to fit, but it's a bit out of my sort of depth really. Synthy, paddy, slow, this sort of evolvey bit. It's very difficult to explain these, isn't it? That bass at the bottom is sort of curly sort of sound. It's sort of another one. I can't really find words to describe it, but I'm sure you knew what I meant. Some of these things are sort of multi-layered. So you've got the bass sound, you've got the sound of the chords I'm playing, and then other little things coming in and out in the background. It's quite clever. Actually quite sure I like that one now. I thought I did at the time I did it, but no, I think that's still a little bit too dark. One's grown on me as a sort of that sort of plucked type sound. It's sort of a guitar but not, and then there's that voice that sort of ahs in the background. I quite like that one. the sort of industrial sort of sound, isn't it? With a sort of driving rhythm. Bum, 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 bum. That can always be quite handy in things, I've found. Sorry, I missed off my right hand. I hadn't really sort of intended to play that high, so sorry about that one. Reminds me of a sort of late 60s TV show theme, I think. Well, that's a sort of dirty sound. I thought at first I liked it, but no, I don't. And that's just scratching the surface. So I really have to say that out of all the things I've bought over the last couple of years, this has got the most useful set of sounds for me. You might hate them, but in actual fact, I can use all of this stuff. And the best thing, of course, is I can also drive it via MIDI. It's also got a USB interface. And interestingly, that actually will let the audio from the keyboard go into the DAW, which is a bit of a turn up because none of the ones I've had in the past would let you do that. So it's sort of half of an audio interface, just the output of the keyboard into the DAW. It's got a little built-in sequencer. I don't think I'll use that very much, but I've only scratched the surface and I haven't done any editing at all. All these sounds have just been the internal presets. It's got the usual stuff, so you can do attack, decay, sustain, release. You can do all sorts of the other sort of synthy type tweaks with resonance filters and stuff like that. But, you know, I've not done hardly anything at all. These sounds were all stock sounds inside the machine. And it looks like, for once, whoever programmed these at Korg had got a pretty good idea what sort of sounds people want. So, yeah, Korg. I like it, and I'm going to use it. See you on the next video when we've got some other things to look at. Take care. Look after yourselves.